Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the JOJOLands Chapter 13 review, which is an immense chapter this month that takes us back to Jodio and Dragona's childhood and provides deep characterization, showing us how these two became the drug-slinging gangsters we see today, what happened to their father, as well as finally gives us what I've been asking for months now, which is for this world to open up. Show us what power or enemy exists in Hawaii, some clear adversity that outlines the story and gives us a goal, and that's exactly what we get in this chapter, which even ties into the theory involving the police we talked about last month. So with so much to get into this chapter, let's jump right into things, starting with the cover page, where we have the main cast revolving around the lava rock and the chapter title, The Absurd Event That Happened to Me That Year. So in my recent Part 9 1 Year in Review video, I mentioned how Dragona hasn't really stood out from the main cast yet, nor has the sibling dynamic felt that relevant, although that is completely rectified in this chapter as the majority of it is a flashback almost entirely through Dragona's perspective, where we learn about their past and their philosophies contrasting Jodio's monologue from Chapter 1. So we kick back to 4 years in the past, on the day Jodio and Dragona would first awaken their stands, and we see a 14-year-old Dragona playing water volleyball in gym class where he unintentionally throws a volleyball at a girl's face and makes enemies with a snot-nosed stuck-up brat who thinks she can do whatever she wants because her parents have money. And later that day on the bus ride home, Dragona accidentally sits on this same girl's ice cream she left on the seat and just proceeds to unload on Dragona with a cruel and dehumanizing display of bullying, really hitting all of the stops on Araki's checklist here: physical and verbal abuse, extortion, sexual assault, and humiliating Dragona for simply being who they are, while most of the other classmates are either joining in or recording. Although there is one kid in the backseat who tries to defend them, but it doesn't make much of a difference. And this same kid had told Dragona earlier that when it comes to this girl, the teachers, the bus driver, they aren't going to help because her parents donate a lot of money to the school, they own the bus company, and they just have a lot of power to affect the personal success of the staff and even get them fired. So maybe it was out of fear that this kid didn't try to stop the harassment, showing how protected this girl is and how corrupt the system can become. And just as things are really getting out of hand, a raindrop falls from the ceiling, revealing that 11-year-old Jodio has entered the bus and says he's meeting up with his big brother and asks to go home and get off. And when the girl insults Dragona's appearance, saying, "Big brother, how gross, are you sure you guys aren't sisters?" a rain droplet gets heavier and crashes through the girl's face. So this is the first time Jodio has ever used November rain, and similar to flashbacks we've seen in the past, like Jobin, it's forced out of him through strong emotion, and he probably wasn't even aware he was using it, as the rain only got heavier after she insults Dragona right to his face. And another important part of this scene is the fact that one of the main spurs of Dragona's targeting was his androgynous appearance. As noticed, none of the other classmates wanted to sit next to him, and the girl says everyone's curious about his gender and there's rumors and such making fun of him. So this could be a relevant aspect of his character development, something as traumatic as being pinned down and someone trying to draw a bikini on you because that's how they think you should look, and in the future, he changes how he looks. So probably related, but we still haven't heard enough directly from Dragona to assume how this affected their future. Is the feminine appearance a form of defense to avoid harassment and not be viewed as androgynous or an outcast, or is it genuinely what makes them feel most authentic? Still up in the air, even more so after seeing their past. And unfortunately, I've seen quite a bit of backlash towards this scene, people calling it distasteful or unnecessary, and at worst villainizing Araki, which I don't agree with at all. Rather, I think this is a realistic depiction of struggles and harassment gender non-conforming people face in the real world for simply existing, which I think is an important subject to represent and adds realism to a work set at present day. So if realism is a problem for you, all I can suggest is that you probably drop the series. So from this look at the past, we begin to see the dichotomy between these siblings, where Dragona is very passive and has trouble standing up for himself and tries to shrug it off, saying, "Oh, she wasn't bullying me, she was just joking," while Jodio has no problem standing up to people. Even at 11, unaware of his stand, he walked right into a group of teenagers with the intention to save his brother. So later that night, Dragona is troubled with pain in their sleep, while Jodio is kept awake by the sound of his brother's whimper, which festers in his mind, thinking about those that hurt him and pushing him to a sinister plan. As the next day, while Dragona stays home, Jodio plants bottles of gas under the bus seats, and from the outside uses November rain to lock the doors and start a fire with the intention to, I assume, kill everyone inside, even the students who had nothing to do with the bullying and the kid who tried to help. But as the bus is burning, we see one of the students' parrots, which was mentioned earlier, also trapped inside, and this causes a reaction from Jodio, as after seeing the bird, he looks surprised and chokes on his water, and in the next panels we see the flames extinguished and raindrops inside the bus. And we learn the next day that no one was killed, but 20 students were hospitalized with major burns. So it seems the only thing that saved their lives was this bird, and I'm not 100% sure what this says about Jodio, as these actions are absolutely the darkest we have ever seen from a Joestar before. Even though his intentions were revenge on the bully, an attempt to mass unalive an entire bus of people he doesn't know? Too far, and shows that Jodio is a deeply disturbed character with a twisted sense of morality, very reminiscent of the villains we've seen in JoJo, and I think this scene was definitely meant to parallel Dio from part 1, who trapped Danny and burned him alive. Although in the end, we see a glimpse of Jodio's humanity, as I think the bird signaled to him that there's innocent life inside, and this might speak more to his antisocial personality disorder, that he has more empathy towards animals than humans, but I think it was more so a wake-up call, seeing the bird and thinking, wait a second, that bird has to be innocent, what did that bird do? And then thinking, maybe there's other innocent life inside too. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I'd like to think Jodio has at least some value for human life. So I was just shocked that Araki actually wrote this. Selling drugs to help out his mom and beating up some corrupt cops is one thing, but this is the most unconventional writing from Araki I think I've ever seen. But it's good, and makes me want to see how this character develops into a hero, or at this rate, a villain. So back in the chapter, we cut to Jodio and Dragona the day after the fire, where we actually see Jodio's father off in the background. I did not think that was going to happen this soon, or Araki would ever show this man, but he turns out to be kind of important actually, but we'll get more into that later. For now, he looks like a normal businessman with overalls, maybe a callback to young Dio, but here we get a powerful scene between the brothers, where Dragona understands what Jodio did is awful, but still thanks him, saying, "My heart was on the verge of dying. If my soul had collapsed then, I don't think it would have gone back to normal. You did what you did before that could happen." And they vow to never tell anyone about what happened on that absurd day, and Dragona uses smooth operators to transfer a wound and officially names both of their stands. The chapter then steps outside of the timeline briefly, where Dragona provides an omniscient narration on a philosophical view, very similar to Jodio's narration from chapter 1, but instead of mechanisms, Dragona is more interested in what they call the absurd, saying the event that happened to me that year was irrational and perhaps absurd. It wasn't good or evil. What's more, I don't think it had any relationship with the environment I was born in or any other sort of reason. The absurd occurs without connection to the life one has lived up until that point. In fact, without any meaning at all. So for those that have actually read JOJOLands, you should immediately recognize that what Dragona calls the absurd is a similar force or energy previously referred to as calamity, just a different interpretation. And right here, we are beginning to see the formation of a part-defining contrast between Jodio and Dragona, and the importance of their dynamic as, in a sense, these two complete each other. Both flawed as individuals, but together create a complete Joestar. They complement each other's weaknesses, and when together, strike a balance. Dragona without Jodio would have been stomped out by society with their soul crushed beyond repair, but Jodio without Dragona would be a loose cannon with no voice of reason to hold him in line or to control his psychotic tendencies. So each of these characters on their own you would never think of as a hero, but when together, they provide the makings of a true Joestar. Even their designs express this idea, as young Dragona looks very similar to Haruno Shiobana, while older Jodio is a parallel to awakened Giorno. They are one Joestar split between two people. So there's the importance of balance on a character level, but this is also represented in a larger thematic sense of light and dark and positive and negative, which was one of my biggest questions going into part 9. If part 7 was a story about the positive flow, while part 8 was about the negative, what does that leave for part 9 to connect to that theme? And I think we are starting to see that right here, the power which is created when the positive and negative are balanced. The mechanism and the absurd coming together to create an ecosystem, a new flow, something that hasn't taken form yet, and together could be a greater power than each flow individually. This could even be represented in their designs, which create a strong duality or instance of opposition, as Dragona with dark hair tells us about the negative flow or the absurd, but with a positive personality personality, while Jodio with light hair pursues the positive flow or mechanisms but with a negative personality. That's more so just an observation than actually making a point, but I think this idea of Jodio and Dragona representing the idea of balance could be a key factor later in the part. So coming back to the chapter, following Dragona's absurd narration, Barbara Ann tells the kids that their father will have to leave them because he was fired from the insurance company he worked for, this being the same insurance company who paid out big time for the bus fire, although there were clear signs of foul play, as without a suspect for arson, the responsibility should have fallen onto the bus company, who was a bit negligent. But due to the influence of those in power, being the girl's parents who owned the company, the blame was instead shifted to the insurance, with Jodio's father forced to accept a payout of 10 times the normal amount, said to have been driven into a corner and couldn't live here in Hawaii anymore. I assume he had to leave because of threats from the powerful company, or he just got a bad reputation and couldn't find work in the island anymore. So without their father, Barbara Ann would be forced to work as much as she could to support her children, and the stress from this lifestyle took a toll on their household, and they became an easy target for those looking to take advantage. Meanwhile, Jodio always thought to himself, why me, why my family, relating to the concept of the absurd. What happened to their family was irrational and unpredictable. It was just a random absurd event that changed their lives forever. We then see how the brothers met Meryl May Chi, who preyed upon the young Joestars, offering them a life of crime to help support their mother. This then finally brings us back to present day on Oahu in Meryl's office, where Charming Man is now invited inside and is able to catch Meryl up to speed on everything he knows about the lava rock, but also reveals something new, saying there's only one lava rock left. You can blame Jodio for that, but it's just a fragment of larger ones higher up the mountain, but that land is owned by a company called Howler, and goes on to say that whenever he tried to investigate the land, society would get in his way. The police, the mountain rangers, the law, it's like they were all trying to stop Charmy from finding his brother and searching the mountain. So let's put some pieces together. This pretty much confirms the theory I presented in my last review, so I'm just gonna let the clip roll. So this could be foreshadowing maybe a corrupt police syndicate that have something to do with the power of the volcano. The framework is already there, as every member of the main cast has some sort of criminal record or resentment for the cops, and could also work thematically with the teenagers standing up against authority and challenging the system, trying to create a more just world by breaking the law and fighting those who supposedly uphold it. Okay, so this corrupt syndicate I suspected could now be the company Howler, that owns the mountain and has control over all of the law enforcement in Hawaii and possibly more, as what other forms of power have we seen in this chapter? The bully and her parents, who had enough influence to get a 10x insurance payout and force Jodio's father out of Hawaii. So I have a strong feeling that this girl's parents are a part of Howler, and this would also give Jodio and Dragona a direct personal motivation against the organization, as it would have been Howler that tore their family apart. Think back to when Jodio kept asking, why me, why my family? Well, now he has an answer. Howler, a corrupt syndicate with a foothold in just about every position of power in Hawaii. And to top it all off, the name Howler is a musical reference to none other than King Crimson, the stand name of the mob boss Diavolo from part 5, the story in which JOJOLands is drawing direct influence. So by the end of this chapter, we have a clear goal: ownership of the Hualalai volcano, as Meryl mentions a vague concept of rights, and with the lava rock they'll create a system for a flow of money and get close to those rights, taking everything from Howler, bank accounts, land, and the company, estimated to be $50 billion in total, with a 20% split, 4% to each member. That's $2 billion a person, well within the definition of filthy rich. So I think we finally have a rough outline for the rest of part 9, and our end goal is conceptualized: take control over Howler and Hualalai, becoming filthy rich and restoring justice to Hawaii in the process. Now we just have to see how we end up there and who pushes back, with seeds already planted for plenty of twists and turns along the way, like Charmy's brother Mauka still in the lava tubes, Jodio's father maybe coming back at some point, or any other cast members who may secretly have ties to Howler. And moving forward, it seems Meryl May has unspokenly become the new owner of the lava rock and is quick to go after Howler, so maybe she's had this idea for a while and the lava rock is just her key to achieving it and stealing their wealth. And she gives the gang a new job to get close, although I'm not exactly sure what this means. Maybe just get close to the top of the mountain, find more lava rocks, or is a more elaborate job of getting close to the Howler group by infiltrating them from the inside, just full on part 5 style. So it took a while, but we are finally finding the plot of the JOJOLands and fully diving into Araki's Hawaii, and I am just beyond hyped to learn more about this villain group and where we go from here. Thank you guys so much for watching this month's review. Let me know your thoughts and predictions in the comments down below and we can continue the discussion. again. Also, please drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you all real soon in a new video. Peace.